Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first quarter ODA webinar, the first quarter webinar for 2025. We're very pleased to have you, and we thank you for joining us and for giving us your time. Pardon the late start. We were trying to see if more people would join before we start, but I'm very honored and pleased that we have eminent people joining us today to speak on a topic that is of very significant importance to us as individuals, as businesses, as well as our beloved state, Osun State. But before we make any more progress, I'm very delighted and I'm very honored to introduce to you our chairman, the chairman of the Osun State Development Association, ODA, in the person of Dr. Olusegun Aina, OFR, who recently celebrated a milestone birthday, but he continues to look younger and younger. I don't know how he's going to, well, maybe at the end of this webinar, we'll ask him to share some of his secrets with the rest of us who are aspiring to look younger and younger every day. So I'm pleased and honored to invite the chairman to start us off by giving us a few remarks. Dr. Aino, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Doja Ojelabi. And I'm happy when we were talking about birthday, you didn't mention the age, just said the landmark, which is really very good. So I'm sure people will be trying to know that I'm just under 50. And as they say, life begins at 50. I'm really very appreciative of the effort that have been made to get this program ready for today. And I want to, first of all, congratulate Osun Development Association and the committee that is in charge, the webinar committee, knowledge sharing committee headed by Mrs. Doja Ojelabi. Thank you very much for a job well done, and we are looking forward to a great event this evening. But more importantly, I have to thank and appreciate the faculty of this program today. One is the main speaker, Professor Abiola Sonny, SAN. Professor Sonny is somebody that I know very well. He was my teacher at the Nigerian Administration, Nigerian Institute of Arbitrators. Yes, I know when I was becoming a fellow, we had a training session, and Professor Abiola was one of the fantastic faculty that delivered those sessions. So good evening, Professor Sonny, and it's nice to have you again on this program.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
Good evening, my Oga.
So we also have Alhaji Amzat Sholanke, who is the chairman of Osun State Internal Revenue Service. We thank you very much, Alhaji, for agreeing to be part of this. And we thank you for the work you are doing for our dear state, improving our IGR so that we'll be able to do a lot more developmental work for Osun. And of course, our member and always was always available for things like this, actually when it comes to intellectual discussion, Mr. Olu Akamu, who has been everything in banking. He's been the executive director in banking. He's worked with MTN, Airtel. He's now, been chairman, president of OPE, one of the leading fintechs in the country. So he has his hands everywhere. I'm therefore not surprised that he's currently the academic director, Lagos Business School of the Pan-Atlantic University, and he's also chairman of our ODA Education Committee. Olu will be the moderator for this session, and we look forward to a wonderful and nice event where all of us will be learning. For those who are not members, we are still expecting a lot of members to join. ODA, Osun Development Association, is an association made of about over 140 eminent, and accomplished indigenes of Osun State who are committed to contribute to the development of the state using their resources. To do that, they have been contributing and they think continue to contribute. We have members both in Nigeria and in diaspora. And out of this 140 something people, we have about 20 of us who are, 20 members who are the Elders Forum, Elders Committee. We created an Elders Forum made up of people who are 75 years and above. And there are about 20 of such. So that means the rest of the 140 are less than 75. In recent years, we have brought in very young people, professionals, outstanding professionals, who now form the bulk of the membership as we are planning for tomorrow and planning for the association. The association will be 30 years old later this year. So that tells you that it was established in 1995, just 4 years after Osun State was created. And it was established by those that championed the creation of Osun State in those days. These are people that worked with the military government of that time to provide justification for the creation of Osun State. Some of them are deceased, but a lot of them are still among us. People like Shivinolaji Abuaba, who was the first head of service and secretary of government of the state when it was created. People like Professor Olu Aina, who is the immediate past chairman of ODA. People like Prince Tunde Ponle of the MICOM fame. People like Ijara Alani Akiriade. These are our icons. These are our veterans who are part of those that have reshaped the past and this current also continue to shape the future of Osun State, working with the younger elements that some of us represent. Georgia, I'm sure I'm still qualified to call myself as part of the younger element. Am I not?
Absolutely, sir.
So the subject matter is about tax reform. I was expecting that by now we'll have a lot of people on this call who are showing it. But again, these are some of the things we'll be treating. It just shows the lack of importance that we attach to tax in an environment like Nigeria. I'm sure in other climes where issue of tax is top on the mind of everyone because you want to know how much you're paying and so on and so forth. Unlike Nigeria, in Nigeria, how many people actually pay tax? How many people are captured within the tax net? So a lot of people may not see that. And that is why this kind of event is very important for us to show to people the importance of tax and how it affects their life. And I'm sure at the end, even if there are only 20 or 30 people that are on this call, what is important is the outcome of this session should be widely disseminated, not just within Osun State, but all over Nigeria and on the social media through the network that we have, so that we are able to impact society. We are able to create awareness because we have very solid faculty here, Professor Sonny, Alaji Solanke, and all of us on this call. And I know somebody like I can see on my friend Alaji Bakare, who's also one of our accounting and financial guru in Nigeria, who's also a tax somebody that is an icon when it comes to taxation. I'm sure people like him on this call will also be able to share their insights. So that at the end of the day, whatever will be coming out of this in terms of press release or in terms of video clips, will be something that society can benefit from. So I thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and I look forward to a very insightful and very educative session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm very pleased now to hand it over to Mr. Adetaya to continue with the introductions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Can I get confirmation that my voice is coming through?
Loud and clear.
Oh, thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Chairman and our distinguished panelists and guests. It's my pleasure. My name is Chris Adetayo. It's my pleasure to run through a quick introduction of our distinguished guests for this evening's webinar. The topic itself is, to use the common phrase, very topical. Very few topics have gripped the attention of the Nigerian people like the tax reforms of the present government over the last year or thereabout. And today, we've got a distinguished tax professional and law professional as well, who will be our lead speaker in the person of Professor Abiola Sani. He hails from the ancient city of Ile-Ife, so he's clearly one of us as well. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria and currently the Dean of the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos. He caught his academic teeth at OAU, Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife, before moving on to Unilag. He's a fellow, he's gone through multiple programs across the world and was at a particular time a Fulbright Fellow, which enabled him to understudy international tax at the Beasley School of Law, Temple University in the United States. He was also a research fellow of the Institute of International Law and Policy of the same university. Over time, he was the first to be appointed a professor of commercial law and occupied a professorial chair endowed by the Lagos State and the University of Lagos. So again, it comes to the table with multiple years of experience and academic knowledge in the area of tax. And today we will gain the benefit of his presence with us. Even more importantly, he is a member of the Presidential Fiscal Policy Tax Reform Committee, which was set up in 2023 by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and was tasked with reforming the Nigerian tax codes. He served as the chairman of the National Tax Policy Review Committee and also as the chairman of the National Tax Policy Implementation Committee. He's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Chartered Arbitrators, and a life member of the Nigerian Society of International Law. He is currently the editor of Introduction to Nigerian Legal Methods, a leading introductory legal text in Nigerian universities and across the West African sub-region. He's also an author, having authored such texts as Introduction to Nigerian Business Law, and also serves as the founder and publisher of the Nigerian Revenue Law Reports and the African Tax Law Reports, all of which are devoted to tax cases in Nigeria and Africa in general. He's outside of the academia. He maintains work-life balance through sporting and social interactions as a member of multiple clubs, including the Science Boys, Ife Recreation Club, Ikoyi Club 1938, and Unilag Staff Club. He's married to Princess Olushola Amokesani, and today on behalf of the ODA Webinar Committee, it is my honor to welcome him to this platform as we look forward to drinking from his fountain of knowledge. Welcome, Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes. Also joining us today, and this is also very relevant, given the fact that our focus is on tax, the planned tax, the changes in the tax reform, and how it is going to impact on our dear state of Osun State. And we are also happy to have with us today Alhaji Hamzat Sholanke, who is the chairman of the Osun Internal Revenue Service. So it comes beyond having someone from the presidential committee, we also have someone from the state as well, who is able to share his knowledge of the current situation and how Osun State can benefit from the tax reforms. Previously, he was the senior special assistant to the Osun State Governor on Revenue and Taxes. So he's well immersed over the last few years in issues around taxes in Osun State. It's my pleasure again to welcome Alhaji Hamzat Sholanke to this forum, and we look forward as well to hearing from him and gaining the benefit of his deep insight into tax matters in Osun State. The session today will be moderated by an ODA impresario in the person of Mr. Oluwakomu. He needs little introduction amongst our members, but for the benefit of non-members, Oluwakomu is an executive in residence at the Lagos Business School, where he also serves as the academic director of its Tech Leap initiative. He was president and co-CEO of OPay Nigeria, one of Nigeria's largest fintech platforms. I'm pretty sure many members, many who are here would know about OPay. Oluwakomu was pretty much the driver behind its initial success in the Nigerian market space. He was at various times executive director at First City Monument Bank, chief marketing officer at Airtel, and managing executive at Bank PHB. At other times as well, he's worked as general manager at MTN. So he comes to the table with multiple experiences across different sectors: FMCG, telecoms, industries, academics. And again, there's hardly anyone who is better able to help us moderate this session. So without much ado, let me welcome and pass the baton to Mr. Oluwakomu to take up, to move us forward with this particular session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chris. Chairman ODA, elders and fathers in the house, the chairman of the webinar committee. The baton, Chris, that you have passed to me is very hot. Therefore, I will not be holding it. I'll be passing it on very quickly to the right hand. I think a good context has been set for why we are here. When this whole tax reform thing began to happen, we were all very concerned whether our state, their Osun State, will be better off, or are we going to be worse off? And that was the beginning of various engagement. So we have different dimensions of interest in this matter as indigenes of Osun State. For our people at home, whether they will be better off, the impact of these tax reforms on them. For us as professionals and middle class people, as Nigerians itself, and also in terms of ensuring that we have a Nigerian state that has the fiscal capacity to deliver its obligations to the people, of which taxation revenue is key. So I pass on the very hot button to Professor Sonny. We are very privileged. He's also an indigene, so he has a vested interest for our state in this matter. If you want to comment, you can start putting your comments in the chat box. We'll read it at the appropriate time during. So don't wait. If something is top of your mind, just post in on the chat. We'll collate it. Questions can begin to come even during the presentation. So, double Professor Sonny Sir, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Over to you, sir. We are eagerly looking forward to
Thank you very much, sir. Mrs. Ojelabi, can I share my screen? If I'm able to do that, it is fine. If I'm not able to, I think I'll just... So let me begin with appreciation. I'm deeply honored to be on this platform with all the high and mighties, the movers and shakers of our states, and also the captain of industry. This can only be knowledge sharing. It cannot be anybody talking to an audience. So I'm just going to share within the limited time available. So I appreciate you, sir. Our Egbon Shegun Aino, it's good to see you again, sir. Now, let me see. I'm still not able to share. Okay, all right. Okay. So I'll be speaking very quickly to this topic. Nigeria tax reform, opportunity for individuals and businesses. When I got this invitation What ran through my mind was, okay, the audience will want to know what is in it for them. And then we'll be interested in some measure of impact assessment. And then how do we prepare for the imminent changes? About the introduction, there is no doubt that we face severe challenges as a country, and we are in need of new money. We are in need of diversification of the economy, including even tax revenue, looking at the well-known low tax to GDP ratio. The last tax reform was almost 22, 23 years ago. So when we had the last one, it was seemed pretty settled that after every 10 years, because the one before this was in 1992, 1993. That was when VAT was introduced, and our tax system witnessed a quantum leap. But nothing came until recently when the president set up the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee, headed by Mr. Taiwo Yedele, whom I referred to in one of my recent engagements as a Nigerian fiscal wonder boy. We may not appreciate it now, but time will tell. Before I jump into the tax bill, there had been some reform initiative that predated the bill, just as forerunners, the John the Baptist before Jesus Christ, one of which was the withholding tax regulation, which commenced operation on the 1st of July 2024. This replaced a 2007 regulation. This is not a law. It's not an act of the National Assembly. And it's a regulation that has given rise to so many problems. But when we talk about the toxic nature of the Nigerian tax environment, that regulation accounted for the majority of it. Yet we didn't do anything. So the Taiwo's committee picked it up and cleaned it up. And then we now have a withholding tax regulation, which acknowledge that taxes are being withheld even on businesses that are not making profit or businesses whose margin are very low. So for some type of businesses, the regulation recommended lower rates. Then small companies are exempted from withholding tax obligations, which is a lot of relief, because businesses who are not aware of these obligations are often faced with huge back duty assessment. When they are not able to cope or handle it, some of them will just abandon the business or go and register another one. Then most importantly, the withholding tax regulation introduced what I simply describe as ease of claiming withholding tax credits. Because there are often times where the tax liability will be lesser than what had been withheld. And the practice is to frustrate people from getting refund. Virtually everybody on this platform have traveled, and we have seen the ease of how refunds are claimed. And deliberately to attract maybe out-of-state shoppers or out-of-country tourists, basically because when you are going back, you have something to take away. This has never been. So now, maybe during question and answer time, I can explain that it's now easy. There is no need for tax credit. There is no requirement even for the tax to have been remitted. Once you can show that I've suffered withholding tax at source, the government will know how to pursue who collected it from you. Okay. And also, apart from the regulation, there were some back-end interventions that the committee did, which may never be known. You just wake up, even in the committee, and then you are faced with some new laws, some new challenges. And very quietly, because the committee cannot openly talk or engage, but move swiftly to say, this is toxic. This is actually going to poison what we are trying to do. So there were a series of reversals. I think the only one that the committee was not able to the banking sector, and regrettably the worst form of it, because it had retroactive effect. So the committee presented its report on 3rd October 2024, and the president forwarded it to the National Assembly. And these are the bills, the 4 of them: Nigerian Tax Administration Bill, Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill, Joint Revenue Board of Nigeria, and also Nigerian Tax Bill, 4 of them. As soon as this happened, there were issues about sharing formula of VAT in particular, and some stakeholders, very important stakeholders, as you know, said, we don't want any of this reform. Take it back, withdraw it. Before we look at whether that was a good move or not, let's look at the content of this. So I present under this section, I highlight under this section what each of these bills is all about. I will just emphasize on the aspects which I think may be fresh. Why? Because I can almost take it for granted that we know the content. So the first one, Nigerian Tax Bill. Nigeria used to practice a system where for one tax, you have one statute. So personal income tax under a separate statute, the same thing for companies income tax, the same thing for value-added tax, CGT, and all that. So now we moved from this policy of one tax, one legislation to one omnibus and comprehensive legislation. So this Nigerian tax bill contains all the taxes in Nigeria and about 8 or 9 of them. So which immediately begins to clean up the fiscal space and give a lie to all the wooden lie that Nigeria has 350 taxes. Then it seeks to repeal 11 federal tax statutes. And it also seeks to amend 13 acts. You can see it's almost 220 or 230 clauses, very massive. Because of the menace of regulatory bodies, regulatory agencies inserting tax provisions in their law. You just wake up, let's assume ODA was established by statute. You just see that there is a provision that says a certain percentage of profit of a company should be paid to ODA. So when they are making law on ODA, taxpayers will not be bothered, because what is ODA? Just to establish another development agency and all that. But ODA and their hicks will lobby the National Assembly, often time for reward, and say, we'll help you create a new line of income. So we end up having several, what we call special taxes, which is an aberration. I don't know of any country where that exists, where you'll be taxing one company about 6, 7 times, and then you'll be earmarking the revenue for financing separate agencies. It's not done. It's fiscal recklessness. So in order to address that, there is clause 202 that contains what I call supremacy provisions. As well-intentioned as this may be, it stands the risk of running foul of the constitutional provisions, and this has been flagged by the National Assembly. So this is, at this segment, in this segment, I now want to quickly highlight some of the changes to each of the taxes. So now there's a new threshold of 800,000, people earning less than 800,000, no tax. And the states are fighting this. Alaji Sholanke Amsat, good to be with you on this platform. I would like to know your view on this, because a lot of states felt that this is going to result in loss of revenue for them. but we can talk more about it during question and answer. So there's a new tax band, clearly, which seeks to make our income tax more progressive. Some people have said, oh, we should even move beyond 25%. We should move beyond 25% to maybe 40%. But we said, let us at least start somewhere. Let's ensure that we now make those who earn more to pay more. Unlike now, when the emphasis is on those who are in employment. If we are able to tax the 1% rich indigenes of Osun State who are in Osun, we'll be able to get multiples of what we are getting now in terms of revenue. And it's going to make accountability to increase. Because they are not just going to be stakeholders in name, they are going to be gatekeepers in terms of ensuring certain minimum standard. Let me skip this so that I don't waste. Then under companies income tax, there's a move towards exempting companies whose turnover is not up to 50 million, increasing it from 25 to 50. Then rate reduction from 30 to 25. The National Assembly is resisting this. And if they succeed, it's going to be very, very, the implication is going to be very, very harsh very soon on the economy, because all over the world, the rates are coming down, including even in our neighboring states. Then the deductibility for businesses. Businesses may incur certain expenses. Tax authority will argue, debate it, and then refuse to acknowledge it. Then we felt that, look, let's make things easy. Business people don't just spend. For example, now that Mr. Oluwakomu is a businessman, if he travels first class, maybe on a foreign trip, the tax authority may say, why will you travel first class looking at but he will have his reasons why he travels first class. That may be what works for him based on his experiences and all that. We said, let's make this thing easy, the way it's done all over the world. In some other countries, 1,000 businesses may fail. It may be the next one that will succeed and become a unicorn. Then we also said, let the tax law be business enabled. All these, no TCC, no business, no. All these companies, if you have their addresses, go after them. Don't ask for TCC at the point where they want to do transactions that you can track and that you can follow up. So a whole lot of then incentives, then bringing lottery and gaming within the CIT provisions. Then under capital gain tax, uniform rate, the rate is going up from 10 to 25, basically to prevent arbitrage and also to reduce distortion, because capital is also income. And then a good policy, we want to achieve neutrality. Tax all income the same way, irrespective of how they are made. Then this one, which also exemption of payment not above 15 million from CGT. The current one is 10 million. Okay. Then excise tax. This is one of the controversial aspects. There's an imposition of excise tax on telecom. I personally do not support it, and I raised my voice against it. The excise is usually imposed on SIM products, and I believe there is also already VAT on telecom. So imposing another tax on that is double taxation. Then there is development levy of 4%. The whole essence of this is to compensate states and local governments on the basis that they will do away with some of their nuisance taxes. If you look at taxes, levies, approved list of collection, it has a long list of items for states and for the local government. from which they are collecting very little. So the arithmetic is that if they collect significant amount of money, they can do away with some of these taxes that burden businesses, and then just kind of, frustrate startups. And you need to see the way non-state actors perform. But whether this will be able to, whether this carrot is sufficient enough to get the buy-in of governors, Alhaji Sholanke may be able to enlighten us. But that is the theoretical assumption. So VAT, again, that the VAT rate will go up, and everybody is saying no to this, including my good self. Because when we started, we said no new tax, no tax increase. But this came in because some far-reaching reform are being made to VAT, which principally is full claim of input VAT. Normally, when businesses pay VAT on anything, they should be able to claim it back. And this is a sweetener. It's an incentive for businesses to help government collect VAT. And when more businesses help government collect VAT, the revenue will go up. But if we are paying input VAT, we are paying refund, it may not be sustainable at the rate of 7.5%. But because of commitment to no VAT increase, no new taxes, some people held the view that let us even try it and see how it goes. So if we have negative result, then we will sit back and then make a case for a possible increase, and that this is a wrong time to increase tax at all. Then another bump, changes to VAT revenue distribution formula. This was totally misconstrued. And this was meant to actually bring about equity. But people just read this upside down. We all know how toxic it was or how serious it was. So now there were exemptions, zero rate refund. Let me just jump these areas quickly. Then stamp duties. There was a simplification of the law, and also an attempt to make it easy and then streamline the instruments that will attract stamp duties. The second bill, quickly, is just meant to Nigerian Tax Administration Bill. Each of those single tax law contained administrative provisions. Personal income tax did or does, companies income tax does, petroleum profit tax does, and all that. So sometimes there are overlapping provisions. So we now said, let us take all the provisions out of each of these laws, bring them together under a single law, which will apply to all the taxes. So if you are talking about consequences for not paying, it's the same across. You don't need to open any book. So it's a simplification. It's aimed towards simplifying compliance. When I started teaching tax, there were things it took me months to discover where they were. But now we are trying to simplify everything. Then the third bill, Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill. FRS was established under a separate law in 2007. Since then, the statute had not been amended. So we have taken it up and we said, let us re-engineer it. Let us infuse some dynamism into the law. And then let us reposition it. Let us also send a signal that is an institution for the federation, not for the federal government, hence the name. And let us also provide specific provision for it to leverage technology. Because right now, if they want to deploy technology, people will go to court, they will raise issue of privacy and all that. And when you look at some of these arguments, because there is no specific provisions, they have been able to sway some judges. So the last one, Joint Revenue Service Board, without cooperation, the high net worth, the 1% Osun indigenes that I said, they can claim to live abroad, and some of them really do not spend excuse me, readily, please enter, knock the gates, and then they will open the gate, please. Yeah. So apologies for that. Okay, where is Egbon Shegun? I know, where is he resident? He may be, you may say Osun, but by the time he shows you his passport, you can now see. So if Lagos also wants to hold him, it can show that it doesn't really stay in Lagos that much. He can say that he lives abroad, and he will be able to judge. If he doesn't even want to raise this argument, his tax lawyers will do so. So this calls for cooperation. And this is where the need to reposition JTB comes in. And this is what this bill seeks to do. So it established 3 institutions, re-established Joint Revenue Board. I know Alhaji Solanke will agree with me that even governors do not appreciate the role of JTB. So the funding of that body is left for the FRS. So it's like, go and collect. It's like an appendage of the FRS. Also seeking to re-establish the tax appeal tribunal and also set up the tax ombuds. Tax ombud is like Office of Public Prosecutors on behalf of Ade, can you please mute?
Mr. Ade, can you mute, sir? Thank you.
Not everybody will be able to hire lawyers, accountants. So this is like helping people, you know, it's like a council, it's like Office of Legal Aids in the tax ecosystem. So some small businesses have complaints or public complaint commission. So whether it will work is another kettle of fish. Let me quickly go to my comments. Let me look at the time. Okay, unprecedented. Okay, my comments. We have never seen this in Nigerian space before. Previously, we just amend some laws, but this is massive. But being massive doesn't mean that it covers everything. Because if you try certain things that are ahead of time, it will be rejected. As you have seen in the reaction by the public to some of the proposals, then this is the most business-friendly tax reform, except VAT tax rate increase and excise tax. I've spoken about them. And the committee acknowledged my position on these issues amongst some other issues. Then we are now trying to shift focus from PAYE to upper class. You don't need to bother almost 50. Okay, if the statistic says 60 million Nigerians are multidimensionally poor, why will Alhaji Solanke bother them? Why? It's not efficient. Then, as soon as that happened, then there have been controversies on a few of the provisions, especially VAT, and some people say, no, it introduced inheritance taxes, and they are saying, let us throw away everything. But luckily, the president stood his ground. When we say political will, we saw the demonstration relating to the tax reform. The president was able to bulldoze the national. So I hope we can see more of demonstration. We come with not that political will to change the structure of Nigeria, to make it cost efficient, to make it slimmer, to empower the subnational. Then The intervention of the Nigerian Governors Forum was a game changer. The public hearing had also been very beneficial. It has been beneficial because at least people have been talking, there is engagement, and then people can see that there is no hidden agenda to actually make this an overnight thing. So I think people are now being reassured because if you look at what the House of Assembly, what the House of Reps have done, you can see balance and also professionalism to some extent. So this is my conclusion. There are constitutional challenges ahead. For example, a statute saying reforming VAT without putting VAT as an item on the exclusive legislative list may run into some constitutional crisis. Because right now there are cases on competence of federal government to administer VAT, and it's still not yet resolved. And I don't see how that will be resolved without amending the Constitution. The limitation of impact. You know, elites on this platform may understand, but for the majority, they really can't feel it. So why? Because it's still federally driven. No state in Nigeria has undertaken, even including Lagos State, unfortunately, had undertaken tax reform. Lagos State did it in 2005, but it's not, you know, it was only limited to establishing LRS. So it was a partial reform. I look forward to Osun State carrying on how to reform, for example, property tax. That is when we can have prospect of our inner streets and also our localities where we grew up gradually being transformed. You know, there's a limit to what federal tax reform can do, although it promises to add to the value proposition is very high, but we can do much more, you know, at the subnational level as well, if we are focused. So I've warned is a lot of my intervention that we should avoid throwing away the baby with the bathwater. And with tax education, participants are better informed and they are able to plan. So there is good news for individuals, for businesses. So when we now understand it, put it in context, we are able to engage and we are able to add our voices to the debate. So once again, thank you so much for this privilege of having this conversation on this platform. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Double Prof. Extremely useful, brilliant. In fact, you can't finish taking notes. One thing that strikes very clearly is a philosophy that has changed. People used to say the problem of taxation is all the people on the streets that needs to be taxed who are not paying taxes. That a central philosophy of this new tax reform understands that you cannot tax poverty, that in a country with gross inequality, where the top 10% controls maybe 60 or 70% of household wealth and income, if we must fix taxation, we need to look up, shift focus to the upper class so that they pay, we elites pay their fair share of taxes, especially elites who are not in formal employment, who are being taxed, who are carrying the burden of taxation on behalf of everyone. One of the key things that is coming out are the potential area for synergy and alignment with the state, which will be a very good point, Grant, now for us to have Alhaji Sholanke, especially speaking in the context of your state. Where are the complements in terms of tax policy in our state to complement the intentions of government at the center? Are there areas of potential conflicts? Are they being manage. Particularly for our people, sir, Alhaji Sholanke, what is the impact of this tax reform on our people? Is it true? We really like to know. A lot of our people really earn less than 800,000 per year, which this tax reform wants to say, oh, let's not tax the poor. Let's not tax the poor. What is the position of Osun State government and alignment with these things, with all these things? And are there opportunities on the ground that we are not taxing yet properly, that our dear government, Osun State, plans for, so that we can strengthen the fiscal capacity of Osun State? For example, all these gold mines that we are hearing that are all over Osun State, are they contributing to the fiscus of our state? These are very interesting things which we will expect to hear from Alhaji Sholanke. Thank you very much, sir, on behalf of ODA for joining us at this occasion. It's an opportunity to strengthen the interaction of Osun elites with government, and we are very happy to have you, sir. So Alhaji Sholanke, over to you, sir, so that we can hear you. Thank you, sir. Alhaji Sholanke, sure. He's on the call. I saw him. Hello.
Hello. I don't think he's on the call anymore.
Oh wow, he's not.
Yeah, he's probably dropped off, or maybe.
Can you help us to Mr. Ogini, sir? If you can help us to reach him, we'd like to. We need to hear from our state in terms of the impact of these policies on the ground.
I'll contact him right away, sir. Yes, sir.
It's a very important part, but we can go on.
Prof, can I just interject, Prof?
Okay, sir.
I think it's important. I think it's important that we get Alhaji Sholanke. You know, even if we are held down for 1 or 2 minutes, it's important for him to listen to these discussions, because I think revenue generation, we are in a very dire strait. For those of us that circumstances have made to stay longer in Osun, I think we've seen a few things and certain opportunities that he could actually mobilize his people to tap onto. That would really be, but like you said, it's unfortunate because he was online up to about 10 minutes ago.
Mr. Ogini, CEO, will help us to reach him.
Yes.
But the interim, thank you, sir. Alhaji Bakari. It's very, very important perspective you are adding to emphasizing.
Yeah, I think he's back now.
Oh, very good.
He's back now.
Okay.
Alhaji Sholanke, thank you, sir. Thank you. I didn't know you are not. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We'd like to hear from you with regards to alignment of all these policies with federal, particularly the impact on our people on the ground in Osun State, and the kind of alignment between the state and at the federal level. Over to you, sir. We know you are very busy. Over to you, sir. Alhaji Sholanke, you are muted, sir. You are muted. You are still muted. Yes, we can hear you now, sir. Over to you.
Yeah. We were on the meeting, even though I've been having some lag time from internet, that some of the things Prof was saying, I couldn't really hear most of them. But unfortunately, still, I have an emergency now. I'm going to be driving to the hospital. We have somebody who just fell down with an AC unit, and some of the boats have entered inside the body. Yeah. But while we moved to the hospital, because they have taken with another car, so I can still be with you. So let me quickly address some of the issues are concerning the reform. Yeah, because while Prof was speaking, he mentioned about the impact on Osun. Are you with me,
hello,
sir?
hello,
Hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
Are you with me?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So now let me talk about firstly the minimum tax entry level of 800,000, where people, the exemption of people earning below 800,000. Sure, that is going to negatively impact majority of the states, and that's why so many states are of the opinion that there shouldn't be an exemption. Probably you can bring it down to a minimum tax level, or even if you are going to do a waiver, an exemption, it should be with a time. One, citizens can be responsible citizens by being able to do their civic responsibilities, and then thereby still breeding children or citizens who will have the commitment to tax payment. That is one, because many of the states, if you take Osun as a specific example, the average income in Osun, monthly income in Osun for private enterprises is between 40,000 naira to maximum of 80,000 naira. Majority fall between 40, 50, maybe few others around 60. So very handful of people can earn about 80,000 naira monthly in the private sector in Osun. So when you look at the import of that, what it's saying is that majority of Osun income earner are going to be exempted, and that it's not a good development for Osun. Then you also talk about the if you also want to talk about the informal sector too, because you discuss holistically about the legal framework of people, not even companies, that tax authority will have to run after them if they need to collect taxes from them, rather than demanding for TCC at places where they needed to do one business or the other, any official function. So then you now begin to look at the quantum number of revenue loss that will be on the state, because initially, even have been issue as we had now, demanding for TCC as a tool to drive people to pay taxes is accounting for not less than 15% of the total tax payment. And of course, if we're also talking about the company income tax that has been, put at a minimum of 50 million threshold, that companies who have will not from then that small can grow their business. That those taxes are going to if they are able to survive and increase commercial value, pay course, the state benefits from, and of course, the state is also going to collect several other independent. But I think it is still very, to say what the state, whether the state is going to areas where benefit, whether we are going to bring in some money. The new formula of VAT sharing, the state may also, in terms of, also don't that the withholding just been reviewed, a kind of withholding taxes. You have payment, use to augment. Prof was saying that businesses are not, many of them may not even some of the laws, tax authority in taxes on achieving them, even actually be on it. But that depends on the overall of individual states. Since I came on board, been doing a lot of re-engage with such that supporting business in business harmonize the with this, put all our time business operation and areas ask for relief, to review it, look for the justice that they are presenting, and so those situations that we, but in some, they may actually steven businesses out of. I agree with you. I still believe that depends on the state tax relief. Stop here. Prepared before happened, and I don't even have the time to pick up anything again. We just have to get. There's a boat inside of the boy now, so it's probably it's going to be like a surgery or whatever. So I just want to quickly get to the hospital and see how we can get the boy. Yeah.
Thank you, Alhaji. We appreciate it takes a lot for you to be driving and for you to quickly summarize some of this perspective. I think it's fair for us to let you go. I think we will.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
So I want to join Olu to thank you, Alhaji Solanke, for the commitment you have in spite of the emergency that came up while you were on the call. Thank you very much. I mean, please feel free to be with us as long as you can, but we appreciate that if you're able, if you're not able to. But I think I saw somebody from Osun Internal Revenue earlier on this call. I don't know whether the person is still there. If he's there, maybe he may be able to also.
Yes, I think some of our directors are online too. Our director of income staff and quite a handful of us on the management are on the web now.
Fantastic. And then I also want to make a big announcement. When Professor Sonny was starting his presentation, he said if chairman of the Premier Tax Reform, Mr. Taiwo Odele, is the wonder boy of fiscal reforms in Nigeria. And I believe all of us agree that Mr. Odele is indeed a wonder boy. And I'm pleased to let you know that an hour before this event started, I sent him a message that Mr. Odele, we want to have this thing, we should have informed you earlier, but if you are free. And he said he has a lot of commitment today, but he will try and join, at some point. And I'm happy to tell you that for the past 10, 15 minutes, Mr. Taiwo Odele, the chairman of the Premier Tax Reform, has been on this call. So, good evening, Mr. Odele, and thank you very much.
Mr. Odele.
So thank you very much for joining.
Can I quickly say something to Mr. Odele?
Yes. So Odele, please go ahead.
Please, Mr. Odele, we sincerely want you to have a rethink on the issue of this tax clearance demand for where the section, extending the tax authority or organizations to demand for tax clearances for processes. Seriously, let me say this. The Nigerian, for instance, in Osun, majority of the people here are still within the informal sector. And if you look at those who are actually paying taxes, are people who are in paid employment. So, and unfortunately, many of these informal sector people, be it trader, be it artisan, oftentimes, what employees are taking, and still they don't want to pay taxes, and there is no way you can ever get this. So, and they will never, want to pay taxes. And the only opportunity you have is, for instance, when some of them are traveling out and they need to procure bits. And you need the bank to demand for many of the states today. Sure, I'm not exonerating states not to be up and doing in profiling the payers within their domain, because we are doing that here. We are on
gentlemen. Let's excuse him to face the challenge.
Enumeration and digitalization of, until we, even at that, when we're able to achieve that, many of these people will still be, dodging and avoiding or evading taxes. So it is important that there are goalposts that will serve as a point of where they will not be able to go behind until they procure, their artisans. Thank you. I may want to stop here. Baba. Sorry, so I'm done, Mr. Odele. You can pick it from there. Hey, Joe.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Enosa, you want to continue, sir?
No. I mean, I just wanted to introduce and welcome Taiwo Odele, and thank you for the honor done us to join this meeting just as a very, very short notice, if any at all. Thank you very, very much. Professor Abdullah Sonny has done wonderfully well to explain to us the issues around the current tax reform. Like I said, even in your absence, he has described you as the boy of the fight of fiscal reforms in Nigeria, and I can confirm that, especially with your antecedents in PwC, where you are a partner, where we had interacted on a number of issues. So thank you very much, Taiwo Odele. Oluwatom, you are the moderator. I just use the opportunity to, before you came in, Mr. Odele, Osun Development Association is an association of eminent Osun State indigenes. I don't know which state you are from, actually. Are you Osun or Ondo or Ogun?
Ondo State.
Ondo State. Okay. I thought you are Osun. I said you should be one of the people that will join this association. So eminent people, and so many of them are here on this call, eminent in their own right, and we're happy to have Professor Sonny. And I didn't even know Professor Sonny is from Osun State until today. So, Professor Sonny is from Osun State. You are more than qualified to join this group. And for your information, we have a number of your learned colleagues. I mean, fellow sons. We have a number of lawyers, and some of the SCM we have as members include the chairman of the body of benchers in Nigeria, Shivadi Boyega Awomalo. It includes Professor Wale Olawoyi, who is also a lecturer in Unilag, that I'm sure you know him very well. Dr. Wale Babalaki, SCN, is also a member of this group. Shibola Akiola, SCN, is a member. Chief Felix Fagbongbe, and Professor Yusuf Ali, who actually is the legal advisor and member of the executive. So that's just about law, and we talk about accounting, banking, engineering, any field of human endeavor. We have them in the Osun Development Association, and we are happy to have both of you, the chairman and also Professor Sonny, join us. So I hope Professor Sonny will start processing your membership, invitation soon. So thank you very much. Olu, do you want to handle this?
Okay, I think we should take Mr. Odele to speak. The representatives and the directors of Osun State Internal Revenue Service, I think they should let us know, let them just post on the chat so that we can identify them. It's important that at least they are standing for Alhaji Sholanke on some of these issues that we need to highlight in terms of alignment between the state and the federal in terms of the intention of the tax policy, some of which Alhaji Sholanke has highlighted. So, Mr. Odele, we hear from him, then we can continue, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me. A very big thank you to Professor Abiola Sonny for providing the keynote speech at this event. We're happy when we see Nigerians who are paying attention to these reforms and trying to educate themselves and also therefore help society to understand. That's why I had to move things around just to be able to join briefly. So thank you once again. I heard the presentation by my brother, the head of the Internal Revenue Service for the state. And I fully understand those concerns that he has raised, which are very similar and consistent with the concerns raised by other internal revenue services across Nigeria. I think almost all 36 states plus the FCT have the same concerns, which is quite understandable. What I will do is to try and provide the context and then let you know what we consider will be the middle ground for going forward. So first and foremost, these reforms are designed to be people-centered, which means we place people first and foremost over anything and everything else, including revenues. So people have to come before revenue for the government, because the reason why we even generate revenue for government is because of the people. And the second one is we want the system to be efficiency-driven. So let's not start chasing people who earn 200 naira, 500 naira, a day, and stressing their lives out when there are some of us who make millions almost on a weekly basis, and we're getting away with not paying taxes. That cannot be right. We cannot build a society by sustaining such a system. And then we want to be growth focused. So 3 very important objectives: people-centered, efficiency-driven, and growth focused. Growth focused means allow me to do business and allow me to grow before you start asking me for taxes. If you ask me for taxes too early, you will kill my business. And not only will you not be able to collect taxes today, there will be no taxes to collect tomorrow. So we're driven by those core objectives in designing the tax reforms. So now to more specifics. So one of the issues being raised is the exemption threshold. We have increased the exemption threshold for income earners, salary income earners, as well as for small businesses. So for salary earners, we have something now. Initially, we proposed 1 million per annum. That's 800,000 naira plus 200,000 rent relief. But the lawmakers, based on the version approved by the House of Rep, they've increased the rent to 500,000. So that means about 1.3 million per annum, which is a little over 100,000 naira per month. Now, our own data was informed based on the level of poverty in the land. And what is it that you need to be able to afford your basic needs if you don't have to steal? So let's even say that you're a parent with a spouse and maybe even one child or even no child at all. With 100,000 naira per month, you need to cater for transportation, you need to cater for feeding, you need to buy pencil, eraser, exercise book for the kids to go to school. You need to also pay, in some cases, rent. And this is before you now take care of utility like electricity, buying data on your phone. And if we are being honest with ourselves, it is almost impossible for anybody to meet their basic needs with those kind of income levels. So we then believe that it is not right to tax poverty because the essence of government is to take care of the people. If Nigeria becomes very successful, which we hope and pray will happen in our lifetime, we should actually be sending money to those people on a monthly basis to credit their account so that they have enough to take care of their basic needs. Once you do that, you have a safe society, you have a society where there's fairness and equity, and then there's prosperity. So that is the driving factor for us. But the other issue that I have to take in, that I need to mention, which is very important. Now, I understand when the Internal Revenue Services are concerned that we are increasing the exemption threshold and the impact it may have on their IGR. But what I'm always advising them is that the government is a whole, not bits and pieces. In other words, the revenue of the government of Osun State is not just coming from PIT and direct assessment and presumptive tax. It's coming from what they share from FAC, it's coming from VAT, it's coming from property tax, it's coming from stamp duties. There are so many other sources. One very important source is that by removing subsidy on fuel and by floating the Naira, the Nigerian people, including these poorest people we are talking about, are now contributing more than 10 trillion Naira a year that is now going to the federation accounts and therefore available for the states, federal government, and local government to share. And each time that somebody goes to the pump and they buy petrol at about 900 Naira, they buy diesel at about 1,002, or they pay transportation that was previously 50 Naira, they now pay 150 Naira. That extra amount that those people are paying, the bulk of it is going to FAC, and government is sharing it. So while we can say that these people are now being exempted from income tax, they're already paying other taxes. VAT revenue last year was about 6.9 trillion Naira. Before then, it was less than 4. This amount, in fact, based on our proposal in the tax reform, 90% of it will go to subnational, 90%. That is far more than the amount we collect from personal income tax. I honestly believe that even if we declare a whole year as personal income tax free, government in Nigeria will still be better off in terms of revenue that they will generate. So, but the way we are looking at it is, if you take something like, so the threshold essentially is to ensure that we're not taxing our poorest and most vulnerable people, while we allow the rich people to have a field day. And I say that based on data with all sense of responsibility. If you take property tax, for example, in cities, those who own property in cities are not the poorest people. But how much are we collecting from property taxes? Rounding error is the amount. The highest income earners are not paying their fair share. The record shows that they are not paying. So when you chase, 1,000 market women and market men and vulcanizers, if you manage to collect all the taxes from them, it's not up to the tax you get from one millionaire or multi-billionaire if you get them to pay tax. Now, we know that it's still difficult to go after rich people. So what we're trying to do is to develop a system that is based on intelligence. And we are linking together all the economic activities in society, from your banking activities to your activities on your mobile phone, to whether you have an investment account, a stockbroking account, pension account, whether you travel abroad, you bought land and you register it, you bought a car, you register it. As a matter of fact, almost all the economic activities that we carry out, there's the role of the government in one way or the other. We just need to connect those pieces together. And once we have done that, this is where the issue around TCC comes in. So tax clearance certificate today serves as a roadblock to economic activity. Just think about it. Every single time that you need tax clearance certificate is because you want to carry out an economic activity. And I can tell you, of the people in the tax database across Nigeria, which is barely 10 million, out of more than 200 million people, about a third of them that are adult, we barely have 10 million in the tax net. Out of this 10 million, not up to 5% would ever ask you for tax clearance certificates. So this less than 5% that will ask you for tax clearance certificates are the people that are doing economic activities. We now stop and wait for them. So when they show up and they say, I need tax clearance certificate, that's when we now cook up all manner of tax liabilities for them. And we hold them to ransom because we know they are now desperate. And I can tell you my example. I am one of the people in Nigeria that will raise up my hands anytime, any day, that I'm very, very tax compliant. Even at that, every single time I've needed tax clearance certificate, same thing with my wife, I do the tax return for my wife. Every time we need tax clearance certificates, we get into trouble. The last time I wanted to register a property in Lagos, and they said I should go and pay 2 million naira for tax clearance certificate. I said, no, I can't pay 2 million naira. The amount I paid in PIT is multiple of that amount. And they still refuse until I reach out to the LRS chairman to give me a note. And I said, how many people have access to this man? So I know of a company, before I left the private sector, where they have a factory where they do some mining before they can produce. One of the requirements is without tax clearance certificate, you cannot import explosive. The tax authority refused to give them tax clearance certificate on a tax liability that they are disputing. They could not import the explosive. They shut down the factory for more than 2 weeks. This is not how to grow an economy. What we are proposing is that instead of waiting for people to show up when they have an economic activity and create problems in the process, why don't we adopt a proactive, data-driven approach? And I'll tell you one simple solution to that. We're working on a presumptive tax regime along with the Joint Tax Board. Once we agree it, we have more than 180 sectors, from vulcanizer to tailor to hairdresser. You have all manners of activities there. You will decide in a year how much should they pay. Maybe it's 2,000, maybe it's 5,000 naira, whatever you consider is fair based on data. That amount, we want you to pay it on your phone. Start something, the day you have 300, pay 300. The system will tell you your balance is now 1,700 to pay. The day you have 15 naira, pay, because a lot of our people earn income on a daily basis. Now, if you ask you to pay and finish paying by the end of, let's say, June of that year, and you have not finished paying, you know what? Simple solution. We substitute your phone line for the amount you are owing government. From the following day, any credit you load on your phone goes to the government first and foremost until you finish paying. You can receive calls, but you can't make. And you can, any phone, you know, your NIN is linked to all your numbers. If you like, have 5 numbers, all of them are substituted. So that power of substitution is in the law. If you're a rich person that has a bank account, we can substitute your bank account, and there'll be no debits on that account to the extent of the amount you are owing the government. This is not a solution that we implement in 5 years' time. I'm telling you what we can implement within the next few months, if we all agree. So our approach is, we're not trying to make the job of the Internal Revenue Service difficult. They're working for the government, they are working for us, they are helping society, but we also want to balance it with the interests of the people, particularly our vulnerable population. So I think the last one I'll just quickly mention is, and my brother mentioned it, the internal revenue share, about the VAT sharing formula. This is going to be, in fact, we say to ourselves, and Prof, I don't know whether Professor Abiola Sani is still on the call. We said to ourselves at some of our meetings that, you know, the president should call us and say, who asked you to go and do this, your committee work? Am I the one that engaged you, or the state? because the bulk of what we did in these reforms are to the benefit of the state. For example, the federal government a couple of years ago introduced electronic money transfer, which was a recharacterization of stamp duties on money transfer. And they started sharing it, federal, state, local government. We said no. Based on Section 163 of the Constitution, stamp duties is entirely the revenue of the state, 100%. We've restored that in the tax reforms, right? So you also have other areas where states are being, in our view, shortchanged before. We've restored all of that back. So the level of improvement in the revenue accruing to subnational is significant. In fact, the last time I met with the president, before I spoke, he said, I hope you are not asking me to, he used a language, you're not asking me to give more away, you know, because every time we're saying we are asking federal government
to shed more weight.
Shed more weight. God bless you, sir, because I shared it. He said, I hope you are not asking me to shed more weight. You know, so, but again, I want to appeal to all of us. Let us look at these reforms holistically. Let's bear in mind it's about people first, people next, people always, and every other thing is secondary. And in the next, you know, I'm very sure that in the next 1 to 2 years, we'll all look back and say, yes, we did what was right for our country, even though you may have a bit of movement here and there, but it's for the interest of the country. So thank you once again for the opportunity. And of course, I'll still hang around for about 10 minutes before I run for my next engagement. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Oyedele. I think we'd like to maximize the 10 minutes that you have given us. Those days when people speak as tempo, we say library. You just came and you gave a very good view of the tax. But the thing that strikes me particularly, and we need to keep emphasizing and commending the committee, yourself, Professor Sonny, a philosophy that elites are pushed many times, that it is the poor that needs to be taxed, and that you have changed the paradigm. It does not fit the logic. In a country where 10%, top 10% of the household wealth control 60% of household wealth, that you want to go and tax the poor. We need to make this work and also to align the states. I think I'd like to call on the Osun LRS people, if there's engagement that we need to have and questions. Let's go to questions immediately so that we can get the benefit of Mr. Oyedele's presence, engage Professor Sonny, and engage Osun LRS people, Osun Internal Revenue Service directors who are also on this call. So let's take questions, please. Questions. You can also post your questions on the chat. It can be free-flowing, no format. So that
Mr. Oluwakomu, before we start taking LRS people, can I just make one brief comment? You see, some of these issues must be signaled from the top. You talked about a paradigm shift. It has to come from the top. How many governors are talking about tax reform? Now they are complaining about reform by the federal government. Federal government doing something within its own fiscal space on laws that it has power over. So if we have reform of property tax alone, and we have Osun State as a pilot, Osun State can never recover from that developmental chain that will be unleashed on it. This is above the chairman. It's above any of the staff, whether director. The vision must come from the top, like it came from the governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju, when he was the governor, and also that is now trying to also develop at the center. When you have opportunity as a least to interact with the governor, put in this idea. These are laws within your control, exclusively Osun. Let's start there. Let's build it up. It's very, very important. Also during election, let's engage on that basis. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sonny. Property tax is being hit many times, even Lagos has done and Lagos has a lot to go. That property tax is a major way in which Lagos State fiscal has changed. Property tax reform. Our Osun Internal Revenue Service directors, what are the thoughts that we have around property tax reforms to strengthen the revenue base of government in Osun State? Maybe you want to talk to the directors of Osun Internal Revenue Service on the call. Please, you can just move if you are on the course. Osun State directors, Internal Revenue Service directors. Property tax. Alhaji Shulanke said that there are directors of Osun State Internal Revenue Service on the call. Can you identify yourself, sir, as Mas?
Yeah. And interestingly, Alhaji Shulanke is still on the call too, but I'm sure it's
Can't bother him. Okay.
I'm sure he's battling with the issues in the hospital.
We can note it as part of our recommendations in terms of rapporteur for the event. We're recommending to the Osun State government to reform property tax as one of the ways to strengthen the fiscal capacity of the state. Can we take questions in other areas? Questions about
Mr. Kamu, please.
Yes. Okay, Osun. Please go ahead, Mr. Ikaode, go ahead.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Thank you. I thank Mr. Taiwo Edele for being here today. My name is Kayode Adeyemi. I'm a local player in Osun's economy. I want to say that the reform that's been proposed is a very laudable one, and the explanations that are given today by Mr. Edele and Professor Sonny, they are quite clear. Some of us have a different view before, but with your presentation today, I think we will start to have buy-in. I want to recommend that the thresholds set for CIT for small-scale industries, 50 million, is too small. We have a lot of challenges for us to stay afloat these days. So I will say that if it's possible, please increase this to 100 million so that we can have a breathing space. A lot of taxes and all. Then in the proposals, we don't know what is the penalty for your erring officers. Let us tell you the truth. 50% of the taxes that you are paying end up in the hands of your officials. If they give us a tax of, if they give us a bill of 1 million, your tax people will ask us to bring to give them 200,000, and then you can pay 100,000 to government. In the law, there's supposed to be penalty for it. I will give an example. In one of our companies in Osogbo, our turnover for the year maybe around 100-200 million, and suddenly somebody just woke up in October and said, the VAT that we are charging on retail sales, where we sell at something of 20,000 naira, 50,000 naira, 100,000 naira, that was not enough, and I want to pay additional 50 million naira. So what do? We have to shut down the company because we have engaged them, and then sometimes they go and bring that. Where do we get all those sort of official payment that they want us to have? So please, there must be penalty for these officials. And once they know that you are going to punish them heavily, you see the tax revenue will go up. I want to say this to the local tax people. There is one thing that they are missing. There are a lot of Osun State indigenes who are on board of several companies in Lagos and other cities. The withholding tax on their dividends, the law permits
Yeah. Okay. I think I just done.
To ask those government.
Okay.
With the board gurus in Lagos that they should remit their withholding taxes home. you will see a lot of money that they're going to get from this.
Thank you.
I think that.
Can I properly introduce Kayode so that the president committee members will know? He's the member of ODA and he's the president of ODA Chambers of Commerce and Industry. So when he's speaking on behalf of all the businesses within the ODA state by virtue of his experience. And he mentioned something which I also want to allude to. When I live in Lagos, but I served recently on the board of ODA Investment. I realized that when they are filing my tax, they file it with they pay to Osun State because I was representing Osun State, and I was wondering why Osun State and not Lagos State. So we mentioned that now. Again, maybe that's one of the things that we need to know, so that people who are from Osun State who are living in other places, there are ways they can channel some of their taxable something into Osun State to increase the post. Thank you very much.
So bringing Professor Sonny and Mr. Taiwo Oyedele into the conversation. Professor Sonny, you alluded, although you didn't expand on it, potential constitutional issues around exclusive and concurrent lists on these tax matters. Are there potential legal issues, especially where there are divergent views around this exemption tax threshold that could be contested in court, that federal can override the state, and for which we need to find political solution rather than legal solution? Could that potentially happen so that we are proactive in engaging and aligning with the Governors Forum? Professor Sonny or Oyedele, you can answer the question.
Well, this is a legal issue. We just have to address it. By the time the reform started, we started on the basis that, look, if we have to change the Constitution, so be it. And then we curated quite a number of constitutional provisions that will be amended because they are impacted. If you look at the tax bill, there are some existing tax laws that have to give way. And there are also some that have been amended. But there is now a convergence between our work and that of the Constitutional Reform Committee of the National Assembly. And as you know, if you already have some ongoing exercise on reform of the Constitution, whatever we are doing, we have to feed into that. And then the timeline for the bigger national assignment cannot be determined. So right now, there are proposals we have made, which we really don't have control over. But the point I made is, before the committee started work, there had been conflict of jurisdiction resulting in cases in court, up to the Court of Appeal. And until the Supreme Court pronounces on a matter, there is no definitiveness. So right now, some states are still agitating that VAT is a matter for them. Even when that is legally correct, economically, it's not going to work. It may favor a few states, but if we are thinking of Nigeria, we are thinking of the economy, and we are thinking of minimum standard, we are thinking of efficiency. This is an area where we need to have collaboration, and that is part of the reason why the FRS is being strengthened, and also the scope for collaboration is also being developed under a new legislative framework. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Mr. Oyedele, are you there?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here. So I think just to add to what Prof has said, so sometimes we'll say, which is why it's always important to remind ourselves that our reforms have to be people-centered. So if we say, let's go by what the Constitution says, we should just say today, FRS should stop collecting VAT. Every state should enact their VAT law and be collecting it. One, we know that will be chaotic for businesses. How do you deal with input VAT? You buy something in Kano, you are selling it in Osun, you buy in Ekiti, you are selling it. It will be complicated. Number two, even if it's not complicated, every single state will collect less, far less than they are sharing from federation accounts, guaranteed, for two reasons. Number one is that the bulk of VAT revenue today is coming from import VAT, international VAT, and on federal government contracts. That alone is more than 50%, which means if we start doing VAT as a state tax, all of that revenue goes to the federal government. They will need to share it with everyone, anyone at all. Like in the US, you can't, no state can go and collect those taxes. It's for federal government. That's one. Number two is when you talk about consumption tax, it's a function of turnover. And there is no individual state that can have a holistic view of the turnover of any company in Nigeria than the federal government. This is why when some states today, even Lagos State, they have consumption tax, you need to see the kind of revenue they are collecting from consumption tax. It's minimal because it's hard for them to track what those companies are reporting. Whereas when you do it at the center, it's a lot easier. So we think that what is good for us as a people is for VAT to be centrally administered, but the money to be given to the states because it's their tax. That's why we propose a 90% sharing to the states. The other one that we proposed that became problematic was derivation. Let people just share based on what they do, but we understand, you can't do all reforms at once. Maybe in another few years, we have the boldness to pick the issue up again, but that's what we've proposed. And then what changes do we need to make to the constitution so that this is constitutional? We've also recommended it to lawmakers for them to consider. I think very quickly, I just want to address the issues that the last speaker before Prof made. So there's wealth in Nigeria, and I think the moderator also mentioned there's wealth in Nigeria, it's just not going around. Last year, the value of digital transaction, people just doing money over the internet, was 1.08 quadrillion. That is 1,008,000 trillion happened in this Nigeria. This is not estimate, this is actual number. Nigeria's GDP for last year, 2024, 274 trillion naira. More than 70% of that is based on consumption. In South Africa, they collected 50 trillion naira equivalent in personal income tax. Nigeria collected 1.5 trillion in 2023. Guess what? In South Africa, 660,000 naira per month equivalent or less is totally exempt from tax. Even in Kenya, that small Kenya with a lot of poverty like us, 282,000 naira per month, no tax. Yet, Kenya collected 4 times what we collected in personal income tax. So it's clear to us that the focus we have in Nigeria is wrong. We are focusing on our poorest and most vulnerable people. It can't work. So let's start shifting focus to those who have the ability to pay. So one good news I have for my brother is that the threshold of 50 million for small businesses, for example, has actually been increased now to 100 million. So in the version of the bill passed by the House of Rep, it is now 100 million. In terms of tax corruption, many tax authorities, senior people in government, they confided in us. And what they said was exactly what my brother said about, somebody will say 6 million is the tax. Give government 1 million, give me 2 million to a private account, we give you tax clearance certificate. People were cutting deals. So we want to change that as well. And part of the way of doing that is to outlaw cash payment. Number 2 is to use intelligence. Number 3 is you're going to have the tax ombudsman. So when they come to you with a ridiculous assessment that you don't understand or don't agree with, you don't have to fight that battle alone. There will be this ombudsman that is resourced by governments with competence. They understand the law. They'll take the battle and fight it on your behalf. Once the taxman knows that it's not business as usual. So just imagine having Professor Abiola Sani as your legal luminary, right? They're not going to come and harass you easily, but you can't afford Professor Abiola Sani in some cases, particularly for the small businesses. So government will now make that available to everyone. So which means there'll be more order, there'll be more fairness, and therefore we begin to do the right thing for ourselves and for society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me ask again, tax experts, are there potentials for or unexpected unintended consequences. If the exemption threshold is that high, and the state, because they are losing that money psychologically, they may not see the subsidy revenue that have come. They now go and increase all sort of levies on the poor that at the end of the day may end up becoming counterproductive. You may be having working tax, sitting tax, running tax, or running levy on business. Are there those potential unintended consequences, internal reaction from the state, and how could that be managed?
Yes, we talked about those unintended consequences, and as we speak, we're still engaging with the local government and the states, because there is another big reform that we haven't done yet, which is the list of approved taxes and levies. Partly because there's also a link between that law, even though it's considered unconstitutional, but there's a link between it and the Constitution. For example, the Constitution says that a local government can collect radio levy, TV license, they can collect wheelbarrow tax, they can collect bicycle tax, produce tax, right? That's not what we want to do. We are better than that as a people. We should not be collecting money from wheelbarrow pushers. These are hustling people. So, but it's in the Constitution as we speak today. So we're working with the lawmakers to address it. Once we're able to engage with local government, with states, and they see where we're coming from, that this would also benefit them and their citizens. And then we can amend the Constitution. The framework we are building is such that you can't on your own decide that you want to impose illegitimate taxes. You will get into trouble. So, but first we have to build that consensus, and we know it will take time. And that's why we are speaking to everyone to please see the big picture and see it about not just the today of Nigeria, but also for the future generation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wedele. We take 3 more questions and we can round up. We really run over time, but it's been very useful. 3 more questions from the floor.
Can I get recognized?
Yes, please go ahead, Chris.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much to our distinguished speakers. Interestingly, today is not the first time I'm getting to hear from them on this very topical issue. And just like the previous times as well, they've done great justice. I've got a couple of questions to both Professor and Mr. Oyedele. I didn't get a lot from you in terms of indirect taxes that Nigerians pay. And in my view, that's probably the biggest problem that most Nigerians have, at least most Nigerians of my own quote unquote socio-economic segment. We pay for security, we pay for roads, we pay crazy amounts for all manner of social services that ordinarily our taxes should pay for via the government. How much change you will expect to see arising from the reforms that you're putting in, such that the double burden we carry, where you pay taxes to government and still have to pay for all these sorts of social services that ordinarily one should enjoy arising from those taxes, you know, will not be on our shoulders. That's one. Number 2, and it's regards to the Nigerian Revenue Service that is proposed. I've heard from people in the Nigerian Customs Service that effectively the Presidential Committee is seeking to put them out of business. Can you share with us here the thinking behind the NRS and moving a number of the various responsibilities of customs and other institutions to the NRS in such a way that it takes away the power to tax or to collect revenue on behalf of the government from these institutions? Thank you.
Because of time, I think let's take Mr. Oguniro, Akim Oguniro. He has a lot of perspective and property and so on, so that you take the questions together. Mr. Oguniro, your hand is up. Let's have it, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. This is a very good initiative. Thanks to Taiwo and thanks to Prof for all that has been said. I want to, since we said there are people from Osun State Inland Revenue Service on the call. I want to speak to land administration and some of the wrong narratives that are out there. A lot of states have clearly gotten it right, and several have made a lot of mistakes. Today, people tend to band around the narrative that you have to wait for amendment of the Land Use Act to be able to change consent and all that issues. The reality of the matter is that the bottlenecks that we have in land administration today are not from the substantive provisions of the Land Use Act. They are from the regulations made by the various states pursuant to the Land Use Act. And any state can wake up tomorrow, and that's my advice to us in Osun State. Any state can wake up tomorrow and change those regulations. The Land Use Act, for example, merely says that it shall be unlawful for you to alienate without consent. It doesn't tell you the process for the consent. It doesn't tell you how much you will charge. It doesn't tell you who will sign. It doesn't deal with all those situations. It is regulations, beginning with Lagos State and other states have copied. It is regulations. So any state, and I've had calls to advise one or two states, and they have taken the right steps. My advice for the people in charge of land administration in Osun State is that if we are going to be able to unlock value, quite a number of projects are coming to Osun State now. If we're going to be able to unlock value in our real estate, we have to create a framework that allows us to commoditize land and housing. We have to work towards a goal whereby you are able to buy or sell land or houses pretty much the same way you buy or sell any other thing. And that means that you have to streamline the regulations, issues around consent. You cannot expect people to pay those high consent rates every time land changes hand, because it means that if land changes 3 or 4 times in 5 years, people have paid more than twice the capital value of those land. So it's important for our people who are in charge of land administration and tax in Osun State to sit down. If they need help, let us ask those of us who have done it all over the place. The regulations that are made constitute the bottleneck. And you don't have to wait for amendment of the Land Use Act, because there is no substantive provision in the Land Use Act that specifies the process, that specifies how much you must pay. All these are provisions of regulations made under the Land Use Act. And any state who is smart, like some have done in the past few months, you can just wake up tomorrow, look at those regulations, take the right step, fix the right amount so that transactions can go the way it ought to go. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Ogudu.
Thank you. If you I need to sign out in 2 minutes to join another call at 7 o'clock. So I'll just quickly spend the 2 minutes to respond to the issue around we pay taxes and we still spend the money to cater for what government should be doing. Yeah, this is one of the primary focus of our reforms. It's just that the tax bills have been the most popular. People even think that that's the only thing we're doing. So we have a national fiscal framework where we speak about spending, even borrowing as well. And we're working with the National Assembly as well as the government around budgetary reforms and also on transparency of reporting. Including, we are working on a new enactment for Fiscal Responsibility Act. So we think that all of this connected would ensure that we collect the right amount of taxes from the right people, spend it judiciously, and then account for it in a way that helps with trust and transparency. So we think this would improve with time. For the Nigerian Customs Service and Nigerian Revenue Service, I think they just have misunderstood what we are proposing. I was on the plane yesterday coming from Frankfurt with one of their deputy controllers. So we sat together and we spent time, and I was explaining to him that there's no such thing. We are not saying they should merge them together now. We're saying that there's the revenue collection function of the customs. That revenue collection function should be integrated. So the customer will still do the assessment on your import and all of that, but let the system be integrated using technology. So there's a national single window project that is ongoing, and it will align all of that so that life is easy for everybody. You don't have to go through 15 agencies, paying different levies, some of them that are not even official, just to get things out of the port. Now, in many countries, what you find is the customs service has three major functions. They have border protection, they have trade facilitation, and they have revenue. In Nigeria, we have unnecessary fixation on revenue. The customs service should not be given revenue target. It is wrong. The customs service is there to implement government policy. The day we say we are waiving import duty on food and pharmaceutical, customs should not question it. They should just implement. The revenue service, Nigerian Revenue Service, FRS, Internal Revenue Service, state, those are the people that should have revenue targets. So we are not proposing it the way they thought we are proposing it. I've said that I'm going to reach out to them with their CG and their leadership team. We're going to have a meeting so they can understand that we have nothing against them and we can all work together. On the last one, on land reform. So in fact, and I agree 120% with Mr. Hakim, my brother, Oguniran, we have a lot of ideas around how to make the land system work. And any state that is willing to implement it will be minting money. The reason why the system is not working is not any law. It is how we administer it. So first, you must do proper titling. There must be proper register. You must make it easy for people to transact on land. That's not where to make money. The money comes from the activities of building the land, of developing it, of renting it. Every time there's rent, there's withholding tax. Every time they are building, somebody is earning income and they're paying PAYE. But when you now make land transaction almost impossible, you create a problem for yourself. So I'm giving this offer to Osun State. If you are ready, we are ready. And we work with other experts to help you develop a world-class model that will not only help you generate revenue, but will develop your state. And it's guaranteed. Thank you very much again once for the opportunity. I'll run now. Apologies. Enjoy the rest.
Why not you take both of them?
I'm talking about the CG Custom. By the way, CG Custom is also a member of this association, Osun Development Association, and we'll be passing your message to him. Thank you.
I think we should take vote of thanks now. I think we've really run very well. Over to you, over to you, sir, for your closing comments.
Well, it's been a very wonderful event, and I hope we'll share all the learning points and information touch points from this put together webinar to all and sundry. Not just free from Osun State, but I think it's also applicable for all over Nigeria. I'm sure the CEO will put thoughts together to make this happen. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And we look forward to your continued support for Osun Development Association. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Chris, vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman. This has to be the easiest job in the world, to thank people who have been fantastic. For the past 2 hours, we've been honored to have this session with a number of very distinguished Nigerians who are working day and night to move this country forward. Let me start first by thanking, on behalf of the webinar committee, Professor Abiola Sani, our lead speaker for the evening. Thank you for the insights that you shared with us, the workings of the Presidential Committee on Reform. Thank you so much. Also to Ashulake, the chairman of the Osun State Internal Revenue Service. Again, despite the challenges he's having to deal with the emergency, he was able to find time to share his thoughts and ideas with us. We appreciate it. He's left us now, but it's still in order to thank the chairman of the Presidential Committee himself, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, for spending time with us this evening. The work that he and his committee have done over the last couple of years has been really astonishing, and especially in terms of stakeholder management and stakeholder engagement. And I believe that's one of the reasons why he deemed it necessary to join us this evening as well. We thank him so very much. To my Egbon, Oluwakomu, I often call him Chief. I don't know if he's a title chief or not, but As always, a fantastic moderator of sessions like this. Thank you so much, Egbon. Thank you for bringing your wealth of experience to bear on this event. Our chairman, Dr. Aino, what can we say really? I mean, your leadership, speaks volume. The amount of time you are consistently able to find, for everything regarding ODA, your commitment to the ODA cause and to Osun State in general, is the sort of thing that inspires, people like us and will inspire many generations to come. Thank you so much, sir, for leading this association with so much verve. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
To all the members of ODA who are here, thank you for finding the time to come. We appreciate your presence. We appreciate your contribution. And also to the non-members of ODA who have joined us this evening. If you are from Osun State, please find the time, find a way to join us in this association. This association is focused on moving our state forward, and all hands will continuously be on deck. We invite everyone from Osun State to come join hands with us in moving this association and our state forward. So the webinar committee, of which I am honored to be a member, let me also thank our chairman, Mrs. Doja Jalabi, again, leads from the front consistently all the time. And this event today will not really have been as successful without our leadership. Thank you, madam. Thank you to all other members of the committee. Interestingly, today is also, this event is the first that our new CEO, Mr. Ajibola Ogini, will be a part of. So this is not like the baptism of fire for him. Thank you for your commitment as well over the last few days and the hard work you are putting to make this a success.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's been a wonderful evening. We're grateful for everyone who has found the time to join us. We look forward to having you in future editions. The ODA webinar series happens once every quarter. So the next edition will happen in the second quarter of 2025. That will probably be in a couple of months' time. Be on the lookout for it, the details, the topic, and just like today, we will aim consistently to bring in, high-class people who can add value individually and collectively to the work that we do as an association and as individuals. Thank you all so much for a wonderful evening. Thank you very much. Do have a good evening and happy holidays. It's 3-4 days of holidays ahead of us. To the Muslim brethren, Barka de Salah ahead as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.